Listen, right now you could be only a few clicks away from experiencing something amazing, something that has changed thousands of lives all over the world. I'm talking about a high consciousness field similar to those at pilgrimage sites and sacred places. It's where people go to heal, to connect, and to become the best possible version of themselves. With FLFE, you can bring such a high consciousness field into your home right now. It's a spiritual quantum technology based on the work of Nikola Tesla. Better sleep, more energy, greater well-being, improved finances, electrosmog mitigation. These are only some of the things people on the FLFE service are experiencing. Try it now for 15 days completely free of charge, no credit card needed. Just click on a link down below to start your free, no strings attached FLFE trial right now.
You might have heard about the World Health Organization Pandemic Treaty. Now, the idea is basically that all member states in the UN will sign up to a plan whereby if there were another pandemic, the World Health Organization would have provenance over the worldwide response to that. In essence, all nations would respond in the same way. But along with that comes a number of rules about you cannot hoard certain things, you can't keep PPE for yourself, you can't keep certain medications for yourself. You have to make it available to our nations. You also have to make it available to the World Health Organization for free if they want to come and take it. It raises obvious questions about why would you want this global body to have control over you as a sovereign nation? It opens up questions about, well, if there was a decision to go into lockdown again, does the World Health Organization then tell all the member states that they must do that? We all respond in unison, thus taking away our ability to make our decisions on behalf of ourselves.
The alternative that was presented to us with this pandemic, this was the best opportunity for some elites that are not elected by anybody, who are not accountable to anybody, to pretty much hijack day by day, month by month, year by year, more and more of our rights, more and more of our assets, because we see that happening right now in many countries. You saw what happened in Canada, for example, when the truckers protested against Trudeau. He ordered that their bank accounts be blocked. And that happened. And at that point, we did not even have, they did not even have in Canada, the digital currency. Imagine what will happen when on your phone you will have the digital wallet, the digital currency, the digital vaccination certificate. If we allow the WHO to have so much power over our states, over our governments, our elected officials, and even over our judiciary. So the biggest threat that we are facing right now is a threat to our national sovereignty, to the supremacy of our constitutions, and implicitly, unfortunately, to our fundamental rights. Because if all of these powers will be handed over to a global institution that is not accountable to anybody, who's led by people who are not elected by us, then we are done with our rights.
So we had a mere iota here or there of some fundamental liberties being recognized by the federal courts, and under this WHO treaty, we would effectively be ceding all such discretion to international bodies. We've seen how that's worked out in real life in many other spheres of our lives. This is a country based on federalist principles. So generally speaking, states should be able to pass laws that protect rights. And instead, we are going in the opposite direction with considering treaties that would cede that to countries that share none of our egalitarian values.
We have the capability to ensure that we don't see another pandemic, the like of which we saw while you were leading the World Health Organization.
Yeah, I think the answer to that is we're unprepared and we're still vulnerable to the same problem. But the good news is, based on the lessons learned, we're building something. For instance, we're trying to address the surveillance by building a collaborative intelligence and a mechanism to share pathogens so that can be used for research and development. And for countries who have potential, they are moving into production of the tools to address the equity problems. And there is a pandemic fund now created. The World Bank is running it, and WHO is part of the secretariat. And there are many other initiatives that have started. This is really important. But the key is, how can we have a binding pandemic agreement that member states would respect? So if anything happens, first of all, the best is to prevent it, and that's why we're building capacity. But we need to have a binding agreement in order to prevent or to early detect and respond in a better way.
And that's what you're hoping for this year.
Exactly.
That's what you're hoping to see this year.
As we speak, member states are now negotiating.
Yes.
And I have been following the negotiation, and I'm hopeful that by May 2024 there will be a deal.
So we, we'll have to prepare for the next one. That, I'd say is will get attention this time.
We are looking at a gigantic con trick before our eyes. We don't live in a democracy in this country or in America or in these other places. We live in a one-party state where the same force from the peak of the pyramid string pulls all sides. The creation of a one-world government to which nation-states would be principalities, administrative units, a world central bank which would administer all financial transactions on the planet, a world currency which wouldn't be coins and notes, it would be merely electronic, cashless society for which there are fundamental implications for freedom, as we'll see as we go along tonight. A world army under centralized control with nation-state armies dismantled under the justification of seeking peace, and a microchipped population linked to a global computer, the latter of which sounds bizarre to many people on first hearing, except that we are ridiculously close to it and the technology already exists. So World Health Organization says there's going to be a measles epidemic next year. Get vaccinated. Get your children vaccinated. You're a bad parent if you don't. Then the same people that organize that then start flogging out the vaccine and make a fortune out of it. So if we take one element of that under problem, reaction, solution, it's amazing the extent to which we have given our power away, our spiritual power. It's all about taking our power back. Because once we do that, it's all over.
Hey, Inspire Tribe, my fellow freedom lovers, it's John Nolan here. Thank you so much for tuning in. It is Saturday, May 18th, 2024. We're healthy, we're wealthy, we're whole, we're free. We're back at home base here. Apologize for the time glitch. We've received some, over the last weeks and months, I don't talk about it, but some severe attacks on our technology and some very weird things. And these glitches are coincidental. There's something wrong with the microphone. Hold on, let me see. I apologize. Everything seems to be in order here. Oh my goodness. Let us work this out. Is the microphone sounding better now? Please let us know in a live chat. My apologies for that. Okie doke. Let me figure this out here. Okay. Okay, good. So, friends, here's what I'm going to give you right away. Again, these things happen, but I will tell you every time that we are discussing this subject, and we have been over the last years. Now it's here, by the way, and I'll get into that. We have extreme technical glitches. The man who's been the #1 researcher on the subject, the pandemic treaty and the amendments to the international health regulations, James Roguski, whenever he was on, we had extreme difficulties recording. We had difficulties live streaming. This is not a coincidence. There are no coincidences. This is out of all the things out there right now, to our opposition to the dark forces, this is the most important thing. But I want to do this the right way. And in order to do this the right way, we have to start from the end. Okay, David Icke in this clip, which was taken from 1996, if you've been with us, hinted at it. So here's what the end goal, and we're in it. We're in the development of it. Is the end goal is to have a drastically reduced population. The numbers vary from 500 million, as stated on the now destroyed Georgia Guidestones, to somewhere around 1.5 billion people. That is it. The rest gone. We are experiencing that mass extinction right now. We all know what has happened and what is transpiring. To have a complete and utter controlled world under one worldwide regime divided into sections, and to have the rest of the population that remains be transformed, be genetically altered and technologically enhanced and altered into a new species, until what we perceive to be this biological body will be completely obsolete and gone mid-century, end century. We don't know. Could be sooner, could be later. We don't know. This has been the plan. This has been, I mean, those of you who've been around for a while and who've been studying this, this is what they call the New World Order, what they have been calling the New World Order, and we are in it. This is not coming. We're now in it. We've been warning, we've been talking, we've been pleading, we've been praying, we've been speaking and screaming and singing and dancing and chanting and writing and filming and streaming and whatnot. And there is a significant part of the population who is too asleep, too sick, and too stupid to see it. Now, you're not part of them, but there is a significant part of the population, and there's nothing you can do about it. Because if 2020, 2021, 22, 23 hasn't woken them up, I don't think anything will. So this pandemic treaty, why is this so important? The treaty and the amendments to the international health regulations, by the way, are the way that this is unfolding is unlawful even under their own rules. They have still not provided, which they should have publicly provided, drafts. These drafts are still not available. There were drafts and they were rescinded. Now they've been reworked, but they are still not available to the public, although the deadline was in January, as we reported on. They're still not available. It is now May 18th, and in 10 days, they will start meeting in Geneva until June 1st. On June 1st, we can expect to have a signed new pandemic treaty and to have, this is even worse, in my opinion, even worse, because the pandemic treaty, to my understanding, needs to be ratified, needs to go back to the national governments, and whatever process they have, they need to approve it. And I don't I don't expect that it will not be approved in the United States. But still, the second part of it, which is the amendment to the international health regulations, that does not have to be ratified because it's simply an amendment. Doesn't matter how much they change it. They amend those international health regulations, and all that it takes is for the representatives who will be in Geneva at the end of the month to say, yay, I'm here. Yes. Okay. There's no indicator right now that would show us that this will not happen. It is most likely going to happen. They have this deadline. I believe it needs to happen for them. I believe they have enormous pressure because this is the framework that will pave the way for the rest of the resistance. The people that have resisted through the years now since 2020, you know what they have resisted and what they continue to resist. This is the framework that will allow them to go after this resistance. So here's my advice to you. If you want to do international travel, do it sooner rather than later. Do it much sooner rather than later. What I expect to happen is they push this thing through. They don't care if it's right or wrong, of course, if it's legal or not. They push it through. By May 1st, it will be signed. Then a few months later, it will go into effect. This is usually how it goes. I'm talking about the amendments to the international health regulations. the pandemic treaty, because of a ratification process, we don't know. But we believe that this is going to go through quick. So when it goes through and when it goes into effect, then certain states of emergency will be very quickly declared, because that's what they need it for. They need the framework, and then they can say, okay, so we got a threat here. We got a climate threat, or we got a bird flu threat, whatever. Now, all of the new rules, all of the new regulations, which we don't know what they will be. We've only seen them. Some of them are aimed at the production, at the exchange of research, at production facilities, at the management of those facilities worldwide. Some of those amendments are aimed at that, but others are aimed at how you will be able to move or not move as soon as a state of, even when they even suspect there could be a state of emergency coming, certain things will go into effect. Now, again, because we don't have the final draft, we can only go by what we've read so far, what has been out there so far, and what is being worked on. But the idea is to create a system that is so seamless, that has no more holes in it, because that's what they saw. The system had many holes in it that allowed for people to opt out. That new system won't give people that opportunity if they want to continue to move within regular society, travel, work, do whatever. This will now be bulletproof. So everything digital, of course, requirements when you travel, the ability to have, to mandate a medical exam, to mandate on the spot, to make sure that you are up to date on everything medical, to do that on the spot, let's say at an airport. We don't know what the mechanisms will be. That's what I'm just putting out. But the idea is that everybody will get their medical treatment. So there's no more, unless you are willing to not move within normal society, within cities, maybe on the roadways, fly, travel by bus, by train, by ship, whatever. This is what this is for. This is the technological, the medical, and the legal framework that will allow them to mandate to everyone who wants to participate in society to get their medical procedures done, which in turn turns us, every being, into the World Wide Web of the internet, not just the Internet of Things, but also the Internet of Bodies. We've already seen that in many people, millions of people worldwide emitting signals, and upgrade us so we can withstand the electromagnetic changes that we're undergoing with the rollout of all these technologies. This is it in a nutshell. And the thing is, they make it so boring. They make it so inaccessible. This is not sexy for people to, no matter how well you package this, people don't want to pay attention to this, because it would require them to read documents, to read drafts, to read negotiations, to go and do boring stuff that people don't want to do when they can watch Netflix. And by the time that this is in effect, and by the time that this is happening, they won't even know that this has happened. They will just go by the new rules, and they say, oh, they come up with new rules because last time it didn't work so well. And even last time, 2020 was in extreme lockstep. We remember that most nations worked in lockstep. There weren't many rebels in the bunch. So this is not fear-mongering, my friends. This is all just facts. And what we have reported on until now were certain deadlines in the negotiations. We've always pointed to May 2024 and June 1st, which is the end of the World Health Assembly in Geneva. They meet for 4 days. That's when they want to sign the deal. The interesting part is there are 194 member nations, some of which are at extreme odds with each other on the world stage, some of who are fighting wars with each other. And this would be, by the way, This would be usually in the past. Such negotiations would be the perfect stage if you had an honest and real and authentic conflict. That's usually the perfect stage to exude pressure. You say, okay, if we can't agree on what we're going to do with our conflict here, we're not going to agree to this thing here at the WHO. But 194 member nations, and aside from a few African nations that have raised concerns and a few others that have raised their voice just a little bit, the big players, China, United States, Russia, Great Britain, India, you name it, and all the other big players, they're all on board. They're all a happy family around this. And this is what shows us what's really going on and how coordinated this is. Listen, the establishment of the United Nations, the establishment of NATO, the establishment of the European Union, the establishment of the WHO, these are some of the fundamental pillars. That's what you need. You need the League of Nations. You need the military alliance. You need the health side of things, the medical side of things. And now we have the digital side of things. Now we have Australia, their digital ID bill. We have the other nations coming through. We have digital currencies, and nations, even though their laws might not reflect it yet, have already transitioned to mostly digital currencies. Scandinavian nations are famous for that. It's hard to buy cash or use cash for anything. So when you have everything digitized, which was their wet dream from the beginning, they needed that. By the way, I'm going to rewind just a little bit. For those of you who are interested, did the European Union have a working group that would develop the framework for digital health passports and vaccination IDs in 2018 and before? And did they say that between 2019 and 2021, there's going to be a test phase? Did the United States have such a work group, and did they declare that there was going to be a test phase? Did other governments have that in place before? You go, you tell me. We went through I want to say, a 50-50 scenario. 50% was real, 50% was a test phase. We went through that scenario, and here we are in 2024. And this, as I said, there is nothing that tells me right now this is not going through. And there's only one thing afterwards that nations will be able to do: walk away. So the nations will have to walk away, which will only create an exit for them, but it will not help their citizens if they want to travel, if they want to cross borders, because that's going to be mandated and required everywhere. So what is the solution? Right now, I'll tell you, I'll give you 4 words. I'll give you 4 words that you need to internalize. That needs to become your mantra when it comes to these things. I do not consent. Because ultimately, here's the deal. No one can force you. No one has the right, has authority over you as a sovereign being, born with the same rights as everyone else. No one has the authority over you unless you give it to them. We try in society, because we live together, because we trade with each other, because we work with each other, we try to come up with a framework. And we need that as societies, by the way. We need to have certain things in place that help us, because there's so much going on at any given time. So we need certain structures, sure. But here's the structure has long taken over, and it has assumed rights and authority over you. And it says it gets those rights from you. That's how every government, what every government says is, oh, the government, well, we get our rights from the people, from the consent of the government, of the governed. Do you have those rights? Do you have the right to force someone else to do something? Do you have the right to steal from someone else? Do you have the right to impose draconian laws on anyone else? You don't. So if you never had those rights to begin with, where did the government get them from? Okay, so here we are. People weren't willing to listen and pay attention to what was going on. And we could have probably done a lot better. I guess we could have. We've done what we could, but here we are. And now it seems necessary that we will have to go back to those 4 words, I do not consent. Because when you are forced, even though you express that you do not consent, when you're being forced, now that is a horrible thing, don't get me wrong, but then whoever's doing the forcing, they are breaking their own rules. And that is something that this system systemically has a problem with. That's why they're putting so many rules and laws in place and statutes and regulations, because they have a problem with breaking their own rules. They do it, but they have a systemic problem with that. They don't like doing that. So they rather just keep on imposing draconian laws so they don't have to break anything. It's a strange mentality. But even since 2020 and what has transpired, nobody had ever put a gun to anyone's head and said, you need to do this or you will be killed. It's not happened. I'm not saying not participating in it didn't have consequences. Every choice has consequences. You just have to know if the juice is worth the squeeze. You have to know what's important to you. Some people said, hey, I want to travel, so I'll roll up my sleeve. Okay, well, your choice. It's always your choice. It's always going to be your choice, even moving forward. This shit being in place is just going to mean that your choices will have to be adjusted to the conditions at hand. We could have, and we still could, change the conditions at hand. We have that power. We're simply not using it. And these people who are doing this step by step, brick by brick, of course they're doing it brick by brick. They've been doing it for such a long time. They're coordinated. Yes, they fight amongst each other every now and then, but in the grand scheme, it's moving in the right directions. They have a million little organizations, committees and subcommittees, NGOs and GOs, government organizations. Everybody's working in lockstep. They have the WEF and they have the Young Global Leaders Academy. They have their people everywhere. Justin Trudeau is still the Prime Minister of Canada. Yeah, so, things haven't changed all that much. People want to say and tell us that things have changed dramatically and everything is becoming better and the white hats are in control. Yeah, the white hats are in control. Well, some white hats they are. Everything just keeps getting shittier. We're this close to digital currencies, and there's no one out there truly and really opposing this in the political arena. Yes, there are some people, and you will have within each party, you will have an authorized rebel or 2 or 3. They must be there, but because they're a minority, there's nothing they can do. The authorized rebel, they can say whatever they want. They can scream as loud as they want, and they can openly defy their party. It's no problem. You need them. So people feel they're represented, but they're actors and players. Not everyone. There's always some good people in there, but mostly they're actors and players. They're authorized opposition within the party. Then there's authorized and controlled opposition outside of the party. Guess what? What 2 candidates are we looking at in the United States today? Well, they're so vastly different. Well, they're both very much into AI. Well, one, if he could still think, they're both very much into AI. They both go for the crypto and central bank digital currency. Yeah, they might not call it central bank digital currency. So what? They don't call the Fed central bank. They call it the Fed. They call it Federal Reserve, but it's not federal. It's a conglomerate of private banks, by the way. And they will have not global AI, they will have American AI. And they won't have maybe a global health certificate, digital health certificate. It will be a Star-Spangled Banner health certificate. It will have "We the People" written on there. So it looks very much like it's in sync with the Constitution. Don't kid yourself. This is what we're in. And we can pretend all day that there's some magic people in the background Yes, we're watching a movie. You're right, we're watching a movie. But guess what? We have been watching a movie for a very long time. That movie hasn't started in 2016 or 2020. That movie has been playing for a very long time. People were just too asleep to see it. Now it's just becoming all that much more obvious. But that's what's been going on. I know there are good people stepping up everywhere. There are good people doing tremendous work, and most people that we know are putting in 24/7. We have these calls every now and then, and everybody is sort of just like, I'm doing my 1 hour walk or 2 hour walk or whatever just to keep sanity and recharge my batteries, because we're added and added and added and added 24/7. And the thing is, they are so well organized and we are fractured still. We fight over whether the earth is round or flat. Guys, we don't know. What if it's neither? What if we are in a construct, my friends, and the shape fucking doesn't matter right now? What if that is the key? But sure, let's go fight about that. Or let's go fight about something else that does not matter. And here's why. If we don't have the freedom to think, if we don't have the freedom to manage our own time, if we don't have the freedom to express ourselves freely, then none of that matters. None of that matters. And this is what we have been saying. This is why we have pressure points. And around these pressure points, this is a huge pressure point in 10 days in Geneva. It's a huge pressure point where people need to step away from their regular scheduled programming and pay attention to what's going on and do whatever they can do if they haven't yet. If enough pressure is put on the people who are trying to do this, and enough awareness and enough attention, usually they can't go through with it. Like the former president of the EU Commission has said, Jean-Claude Juncker, he said this, and I've said this many times. He said it in an interview. He was usually drunk, so he just said the truth, And he said, you know what we do? When we want to do something that's pretty out there, we let it, we give the press a little bit about it. We tell the press what we're about to do. And if there is no outrage and if there is no pushback, then we keep going until it's irreversible. This was the motto for the European Union. They keep pushing until things are irreversible. Until there's one currency, until there's open borders, until there's a mishmash of economies that do not match each other, until there is a cultural deterioration. Words are not coming out right. A cultural destruction. Until all those things are in place. And we can close our eyes, and I've seen this game over and over and over and over again, friends. The same people that are pushing the same narratives, they've been, or maybe they haven't been around, but this has been going on for 20, 30 years. NESARA, GESARA, quantum financial system, a worldwide new financial system, mass arrest of the culprits. The cabal is over. The Khazarian mafia is defeated. There's going to be a payout for everybody from their straw man accounts. You want to trust me? You throw one of these stories at me and more. I know all of them by heart. The quantum financial system, this is one of my favorites. The quantum financial system was implemented. It was going live. It went live last weekend. We just don't see it yet. It's been going live for 15 years every weekend, especially around the fall. October surprise. The new quantum financial system will go live on October 10th. We just won't see it yet. So if you're still struggling, sit it out. I'm sorry I'm being cynical. I'm sorry, I apologize for being cynical. But the amount of fights and the amount of useless division that we've had, if we, as I've said so many times, 2020 did one good thing. For a period for a period, it united many of us. And we were just in for freedom. That was all. It didn't matter. None of the other stuff mattered. We're just freedom. That's it. We just want to live the way we want to live. As long as we don't harm anybody, go and fuck off. That was the deal. And now we're fragmented. And I love, trust me, I love exploring all the concepts. I love exploring what we've been talking about so much lately on this channel. But here's the thing. I also realized that time is of the essence, and there is not much time left to talk about these things. Guess who, when this all comes through, a huge part of which is institutionalized worldwide censorship, then imposed by the WHO, if this goes through, guess whom you won't be seeing on your screens? Guess who won't be calling you my fellow freedom lovers? Yes, yours truly won't be here. You think they will allow us to be here? Of course they won't. They didn't. They did it before. Now it will be institutionalized. The pressure will be so much bigger. The pressure will be so much bigger. And this WHO bullshit will give the compliance crowd, the let's protect each other, I'm doing it for you, that crowd, that's going to give them such a boost in confidence, because now they will have the worldwide Gestapo boot marching with them, not knowing, not understanding, not seeing that the boot is on their neck. They're just not seeing it yet. It's on everyone's neck. They're not seeing it. They're not seeing it, you know? I need to do this every now and then because this is truth too. You know, we explore the greater concepts of this, of where we are, who we are, what we're in, and we're in something. And right now, this something is being turned into a prison within a prison within a prison. And we seemingly cannot unite around that. This should be a subject, the WHO stuff should be a subject that should unite our entire truth and freedom community. But the reason that it doesn't is because certain people are not talking about it, or talking about it very little, have very little interest in it. I don't know why. Maybe they don't understand it. Or maybe they're just part of a team that doesn't want them to talk about it, right? But this is, this to me is the most important thing that's happened in decades for our opposition, these dark forces. It's the most significant thing. And of course, on June 1st, nothing will change. June 1st, 2024, nothing will change. It will be a Wednesday like any other Wednesday, unless there's something else going on. But down the line, if this is done and signed and ratified down the line, the world will change in such dramatic ways. And when people will realize what has happened and how it's happened, there will be this great, it will be the same thing as in 2020. People will go, oh my God, why didn't they tell us? Why didn't you tell us? Nobody said something. When we went to the elections, nobody talked about it because, yeah, do you hear any of the candidates talking about the WHO pandemic treaty? And let's be frank. Right now, there are only 2 candidates in the United States that have a viable chance if we go by the election illusion, right? RFK Jr. doesn't, I don't see it. I don't see the math anywhere. And I'm not throwing my hat in for anyone, by the way, not for anyone. But is there any serious conversation about this? You know, for those who are huge Trump supporters, why is he not talking about this? This should be a pretty, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe I haven't seen it, but this should be a pretty good rally subject. You go to a rally and you tell them, hey, there's something very sinister going on. There is a global organization that nobody voted for, that is a private organization that's paid for by private money, in large parts by people like, the Gates Foundation and China and many others. And they're about to do this thing. This could be a really good subject with rally crowds, but I'm not hearing it, and I might be wrong. Yes, I know, and I cheered for that when Trump exited the WHO, but it wasn't a permanent move, it was a temporary move. And in hindsight, it seems like it was a strictly political move. I could be wrong. Anyways, here we are. I do not consent. I want you to remember those words. I want you to study what they really mean. And I want you to practice those words, because if you don't practice them, and if you don't imagine what a situation might unfold like where you will use them, you won't have the guts, you won't have the courage to do it. You have to ask yourself, what's your line in the sand? And will you give in when something horrendous is being asked of you, or when somebody wants to impose something on you? Will you remember that you are a sovereign being who was born free, and that you have ultimately complete sovereignty over your being, over your body? Will you remember that? Because that is the key point. You know what most people say when they get into an unexpected situation, and then they allow for authorities to violate them, to violate their rights, to violate their sovereignty, to walk all over them? You know what they say afterwards? How could I? I knew it was wrong, but I just wasn't courageous enough to say something. I do not consent. All of this, and I mean all of this, everything that we have discussed in the last weeks, what's happening in this world and beyond this world, it only happens with our consent. There is no such thing as it happening without it. Not in the big scheme of things. We have to agree to it, even if we're being tricked into it. Yes, if we're being deceived, sure, but somewhere in there the fine print is always there, and we have to agree to it. So what will you agree to, and when will you not consent any longer? The truth of it all is that if we understood that and would really embody that on a bigger level, we wouldn't need to go and change laws and rules and regulations. We would simply withdraw our energy, withdraw our consent, and say, I'm not playing anymore. This is all a playing field. It's like a football field, but much bigger. That's why we don't know we're on a field. We don't see it. It's so huge, we can't see the edges. But if you happen to do find the edges of that field, then you realize you can always walk off. You can always walk off. And you say to the referee, I'm out of here. Y'all keep playing, keep changing the rules, keep making it harder for everyone, whatever you want, but I'm not playing any longer. I'm out of here. And this, as it stands right now, will be for most people the only option. Think seriously and in a very, very serious way about what it means to exit society. To not do the things that are so normal in society, because you won't be allowed. 15-minute cities are popping up everywhere. If you don't know what a 15-minute city is, please type it into any search engine. Start looking. It's a wonderful concept on paper. The wonderful concept says that you will live in a city that is green, that is walkable, and you shop, you live, you work, and leisure. Everything is within 15 minutes, and it's a beautiful environment, and it's all wonderful. It sounds perfect. Man, it beats every city I've ever seen. Yes. But what's the fine print? It will all be in a digital grid. You will have to check in everywhere you go. It will be completely and 100% surveilled. And not just that, but you will have to, in some way, shape, or form, be identifiable at all times. And it will have to be known at all times whether you might be in some way dangerous, maybe health-wise or whatever. So there will be certain technologies dispersed and used so they know whether you are dangerous or not. The 15-minute city is a city, is the neighborhood where you don't own anything and you are happy because you have access to everything. You don't need to necessarily purchase things anymore. You can just use them and then leave them where you don't need them any longer, but you don't own anything, and that is okay. You know, you don't really have privacy, but hey, I mean, you give some, you get some. You have universal basic income, so you get your tokens into your digital wallet every month. You can use them, but if you continue to be a rebel or say things that are not um, allowed or against the grain, then those tokens just might not work. None of this is fiction. All of this is already implemented. It's already done. The technology is here, and in some countries in the world, it's already working. And it's already working here. It's just working on a voluntary basis. This won't happen overnight, but it will happen. I've had discussions about this with some people who, I'll tell you this, they have been in the upper echelons of the power structure, albeit they are rebels, but they've been in that structure and stayed there. And these people are saying this will happen. There's nothing that can stop it now. The question is, how much of their plans can we sort of soften or change until we have enough people on board to overthrow the whole thing? Legally, lawfully overthrow. I have to say that. Lawfully, of course, I'm not calling for any kind of violence ever. Never offensive violence. If you need to defend yourself, go at it. Go hard. But otherwise, I don't call for the rest. I do not consent are the only words that I want you to remember and practice. We are all going to need them. We already needed them. And some who didn't practice before, unfortunately, made some very poor choices. The good news, as always, is that we are being joined every day by more and more and more people that are exploring the biggest concepts, the smallest concepts, and that are simply realizing one thing, that ultimately they're free to choose whatever they wish as long as they don't harm anyone, and they are sovereign and have sovereignty over their words, their thoughts, their feelings, their choices, their actions. Now, if these things are way more important that people realize that than that they understand exactly who is doing what in the world. That's second. The second, you can figure everything else out later. But first, you need to figure out who you are, that you are a sovereign being, that you are a free being, that you have those choices, and that everything is a choice. Even not making a choice is a choice. And last but not least, to close this is not a time for excuses. This is not a time to look for saviors outside of you. Honestly, really, we are the ones we have been waiting for. There is no more time for excuses. We don't have the luxury of years or decades. Whatever needs to be done, what needs to be healed, do it. Don't wait. Do it. As I've been saying, and it's not because that's what I intend to create, but there are energies at work. And if a thought, an intention construct paired with real actions, if that energy gets enough momentum, that train is rolling. And there is a train rolling. And there's no stopping that train. Certain things are going to happen. We're going to have to go through. And then we'll see what that will do to the remaining real people. All right, my friends. We will see if we can get in the following days James Roguski on. I've just looked at his stuff. We're in constant communication. Who is the #1 researcher on all things WHO, pandemic treaty, and international health regulations. They haven't put anything out. They're breaking their own rules, of course, but they're going to invent new rules. So That's going to get them off the hook. And we'll see what we can get. Blow up someone's phone if you feel inspired to do so. And blow up your social media. Ask people if they know about this. See if you can have conversations about this. It feels like I've been running against walls everywhere. Nobody seems to care. And the people who are open and awake enough to know better, some of them have been hypnotized in such a strong way that they believe that none of it is really real. No suffering, no wars, nothing that's going on in the world is real. Everything is just a movie. And I can't help that. That's delusion. All I have to do is walk down the street to see the real life effects, to see the pain, to see the suffering, to see the deaths. It's all around us. Some movie this is. All right, my friends, thank you so much for tuning in. We love you. We appreciate you. We'll be back with you again very, very soon.